Welcome back to Slack Signal X. You grow up in America, and there are certain things you just accept. Apple pie is good, baseball is sacred, and socialism? Socialism is the devil in a Che Guevara t-shirt. It's not something you question. It's baked into your education, your sitcoms, your politicians' voices when they clutch their greed-filled hearts at the word public. It's the background hum of this country. So constant, you don't even hear it. Socialism equals communism, equals gulags, equals starving in breadlines while a dictator builds statues of himself. That's the cartoon they sold us. But here's the thing. Once you step outside the echo chamber, once you start looking around and talking to real people in real places, it all starts to unravel. Because the story they told us, it's a fairy tale. And like most fairy tales in this country, it was written by the winners for the winners. So let's walk it back. Let's talk about what we were taught, and more importantly, why we were taught it. Let's talk about how we were brainwashed into hating an idea that might have actually saved us. But before we begin, please like, subscribe, and don't be a poser. 1. Greed. Let's go back. Not to the Cold War, not even to McCarthy. Let's go all the way back to when this machine started eating people for profit. The late 1800s, the Gilded Age, the American dream in its first draft. You had robber barons sitting on more wealth than medieval kings, Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, while the people who made them their fortunes were dropping dead in textile mills, coal mines, and rail yards. 12-hour days, 6-year-olds working with missing fingers, whole towns living in debt to the company store. The people had enough. The labor movement was born out of necessity, not ideology. These weren't wild-eyed radicals. These were normal people trying not to starve. And when they asked for things like weekends, safe conditions, a living wage, suddenly they became socialists. A word that, by the turn of the 20th century, was already being weaponized to mean enemy of the American way. Chapter 2. Eugene Debs and the First American Socialists. Now here's a name they don't teach you in school. Eugene V. Debs. Debs was a union man, a 5-time presidential candidate, and a devout believer in the idea that ordinary people deserve a shot at dignity. Radical, right? In 1918, he gave a speech criticizing World War I, calling it what it was, a meat grinder for profit. For that, he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. What's more American than that? But even behind bars, Debs pulled off almost 1 million votes. Not because people wanted a Soviet-style revolution, but because he was the only guy talking about how the system was rigged. But his story was buried, and socialism was tarred with words like traitor, foreigner, threat, because people like Debs reminded Americans of a hard truth. That freedom without economic security is just another scam. 3. Red, white, and scared to death. Then came the Cold War. Now this is where the propaganda went from heavy-handed to full-blown Orwellian. McCarthyism wasn't just a sideshow. It was the cultural purge of anything left of Eisenhower. If you were a teacher who brought up workers' rights, a writer who sympathized with the labor movement, a jazz musician who didn't toe the line, you were suspect. Hollywood was forced to churn out anti-communist films. Union organizers were surveyed. Even MLK, whose civil rights message included economic justice, was branded a threat. The message was clear. If you questioned capitalism, you were un-American. 4. What they didn't want you to know. Here's the part they don't want you to think about. 40-hour work week? Socialist. Social Security? Socialist. Medicare? Socialist. Fire departments, libraries, public parks? Socialist. And yet, we're still told that socialism is some kind of existential threat. Why? Because if we realized that socialism works, the billionaire class would be screwed. 5. The Great American Contradiction. Here's the thing no one likes to admit. The same people who scream about the evils of socialism, they love socialism for themselves. We saw it during the 2008 crash. When Wall Street lit the economy on fire, what did they do? They begged the government to step in, and the government did, with your money. Corporate socialism is alive and well in America. We just call it something else. Tax breaks, subsidies, bailouts. But when you ask for free college or free health care, suddenly that's tyranny. We've been trained to punch down instead of up. 6. Scandinavia. Now let's step outside for a minute. Let's look at countries like Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, places where socialism isn't a dirty word. These aren't hellscapes. These are modern capitalist democracies that just choose to give a damn. Free college, universal health care, strong labor protections, parental leave, public transit that doesn't smell like sadness and mold. And here's the ticker. They're doing just fine. Their people live longer. They're happier, less stressed, less bankrupt. And guess what? They still have elections. They still have businesses. They still drink beer and argue about taxes. They just decided that people should come before profit. And yeah, they pay higher taxes, but they actually get something for it. What do we get? Student loans, broken healthcare system, and bootstraps. 7. The culture war smokescreen. So why the hate? Why are people still foaming at the mouth over the idea of free school lunches or public housing? Because that's the genius of the American propaganda machine. They turned solidarity into suspicion. They turned helping each other into handouts. And they built an entire culture war around it. Where asking for universal health care means you're lazy. Where unionizing your job means you're trying to ruin the economy. It's all noise. Noise to keep you distracted while the people at the top write the rules and cash the checks. 8. The awakening. But something's changing. Millennials and Gen Z, they're not buying it anymore. They've seen the holes in the system, the jobs that don't pay, the healthcare that doesn't cover, the schools that leave you in debt before you even started your life. They've seen how the rich get richer while the rest of us scrape by. And they're not scared of the word anymore. Socialism. They know it doesn't mean gulags. It means community. It means healthcare without bankruptcy. It means education without debt. It means dignity. And that scares the hell out of the people who built their empires on exploitation. The biggest con in American history wasn't selling us on capitalism. It was convincing us that there was no alternative, but there is. And it's not some utopian fantasy. It's working right now in countries that made different choices. So the next time someone tells you socialism is evil, ask them why. Ask them who told them that. Ask them if they're really okay living in a system where a broken arm costs more than a used car. Because maybe the enemy isn't socialism. Maybe it's the people that told us to fear it. Thanks again. This has been Slack Signal X.